Running with the runners. It's Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023. Guys, the next 6 months is going to decide the future of the entire world. You know, what is coming up? Millions will be made. A generational wealth transfer is going to happen. We got Ricardo Hamilton, aka M.I.M.S, Make It Make Sense, here to break it down. My man, what's going on? How you feeling tonight?
Well, yeah, brother. I mean, we've been talking about this for years now, the crisis and the opportunity. And we're really starting to see the developments take place where we're getting to the point of no return. And, the system's literally breaking, right in front of our eyes. And there's a transition taking place. And so we want to talk about it. And we want to talk about some solutions and opportunities like we've been talking about. So we got a great show for y'all tonight, man. Great show.
And again, the key is always runners, is we want to focus on preparing you, not scaring you, right? Things are going to happen. We've called them out in the future. We're almost batting 100% at this point. So here's what you need to understand of what's going to happen in the economy the next 6 months and how you can position yourself to make sure that you win and your family wins generationally. So we're going to try to just break this down really simple tonight. Almost everything we know about the economy comes down to interest rates. How much does it cost to borrow money? This is where we're at in this economy. And it's been this way for a long time. So this is just from, what is today? Literally today. This is from today, Ricardo. Okay. 30-year mortgage rates jump to new high. All right. From Investopedia. Once again, the 30-year mortgage average has set a new 21-year high, climbing almost a tenth of a point Monday after a slight dip Friday. Monday's rise takes the flagship average 6 basis points above last week's high water mark. So the latest 30-year fixed rate average is 7.76. And you guys got to remember, most people, if you bought, in the last decade or so, are probably locked in the fours, the low fours. Some people got in the threes. All right. So we're looking at 3% above what most people are locked in. So as this interest rate goes up, it's more expensive to borrow money, meaning less people are going to speculate, less people borrow money. This is kind of bad news for the mortgage industry. Rates vary widely across lenders, so it's always smart to shop around. Here's the national averages of lenders' best rates. So you have a 30-year fixed. Wow, even a 15-year fixed is over 7%. There used to be a significant discount in the last decade at least. When I would look at a 30 versus a 15, this is how long you're, borrowing the money to pay off a house. I mean, at this point, I don't know why anyone would even go with a 15-year fix. And even the refis are 7-8%. Freddie Mac released its weekly mortgage average last Thursday, revealing a new 21-year high for 30-year rates. So M.I.M.S, maybe make it make sense. How is this going to affect the ordinary, everyday person who's just trying to survive, get along? They got to work their job. They got to pay their bills. This really isn't good news for them, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I mean, the cost is going up. I mean, the economy is already tight where it is. And what we're looking at is a trend. And when I see this stuff, I 2008 just keeps popping in my head. 2008, and we have a crisis, and it's going to show its head in different segments and different industries and areas in the economy. And we're seeing it here with homes and mortgages. And so, this is the thing, that this is the data. And this data is what the institutions, the government, the corporations use to get a projection and how they handle their economy, their business, right? Well, you need to know this data. You need to understand this data. You need to be able to analyze this data so you can see what's coming, and so you can make proper plans and strategize for it, because this alters people's life plan. This alters the decisions that they're going to make, next year and the year after. And when you put that, into conjunction with everything else that's going on, it'll help you, really get a better idea of what you need to be doing right now and how to prepare for, you know, the eventuality that this gets worse, like a 2008 financial crisis. Because you know, like you said, it was cheap money early on, low interest rates, the party's over, and the Fed is going to crash this economy, keep raising rates. I mean, so you know, we're seeing these indicators in the market, and we're watching them. But you know, this is why, regardless, you know, we've stuck with our strategy. You know, what I'm saying, of securing our wealth and assets, creating cash flow, and making strategic investments in emerging markets and technology.
I mean, it's about 2:15 in the morning, guys. Last call is done. All right. Everyone had a great time. We were printing money left and right, baby. Woo, the lockdown, print some more money. Give me a stimulus check, right? It's all gone now, guys. It's time to get ready
Yeah,
for what's coming, and it's opportunity. Okay. So
yeah,
why do I say that? Go
and
ahead.
some, now I was going to say, and some other things is that remember, when you start to see things get bad, they not only will they get worse, but that's when you see some type of event, whether it, you know, that affects us nationally or globally. You see some type of, you know, Mike, you call it a lot of times a black swan event.
Yep.
You know, you might see something in the market. I'm hearing, you know, we might end up wearing masks again. Something might come up. I don't know. But all I do know is that, you know, they definitely have a plan, and this, and they don't have our best interests at heart.
No, I hope you guys know that right by now if you've been following us for the last 3 years. So, but here's the thing, guys. Again, this is opportunity. The next 6 months is opportunity. It's like we always teach you guys, when a crypto or an asset goes down, that's when you want to buy. So it's all about getting ready right now. So from Market Insider, Warren Buffett and Michael Burry are ready and waiting for a stock market crash. Rich Dad, Poor Dad author says, why they can't say Robert Kiyosaki, like they got to like act like he just wrote a book and didn't teach a whole generation about assets, is of course, you know, it's mainstream media, what do you expect? If you guys don't know, Michael Burry is famous for calling The Big Short. There's a movie that was pretty famous called The Big Short, where he knew what was going to happen in 2008 and he bet against it. He bet against the real estate asset default swaps. That was the biggest scam in human history, and made a bunch of money. So we're going to find out what he's thinking now, and what, again, Warren Buffett is, you know, one of the richest men in the world. You know, we talk about him all the time. He says, you know, you got to make money while you sleep, or you're going to work until you die. So the big takeaways here: Warren Buffett and Michael Burry are waiting for stocks to crash, Robert Kiyosaki says. The author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad pointed to Buffett stockpiling cash and Burry shorting the market. Buffett and Burry are both value investors who excel at finding bargains during market downturns, which is why we're doing this live tonight, guys, right? What good is it to worry about what's going to happen? The question is, how will you profit from it? Let me blow this up a little bit here. Warren Buffett and Michael Burry are ready and waiting for stocks to plunge and bargains to pop up, Robert Kiyosaki says. Buffett is on the sideline with $147 billion. His money's in short-term treasuries, Kiyosaki said on Kavuto. Michael Burry of The Big Short, he's shorting the market right now. And we're going to talk about what treasuries are, and you guys will get that later. Don't worry if you know what that means. I just watched these guys waiting for the market to crash, then go back in. The author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad added, it's a lot of money sitting on the sideline right now. Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway sold a net $8 billion of stocks and slowed its buybacks last quarter. That fueled a 13% increase in its total amount of cash and treasuries to a near record $147 billion. Meanwhile, Burry's Scion Asset Management disclosed this week that it held bearish put options. That means they're betting for it to go down on the Spider S&P 500 ETF Trust and Invesco QQQ Trust at the end of June. Those exchange-traded funds track the benchmark S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100 indexes, respectively. Burry's options mean he stands to profit if the indexes fall. So M.I.M.S, we have one of the wealthiest, richest, wisest men in America stockpiling cash, getting ready to buy the dip. You have Michael Berry putting a bet in that the market's going to go down. What does this tell the average ordinary people they should be doing right now? Make it make sense.
Yeah, I mean, when you have those giants and those people who have that type of success calling the market, and they're looking at data, they understand information better than the average person. It's not by accident that they're sitting on a lot of cash. There's always opportunity in the market. There's always an up market. There's always a down market. There's cycles in the market, but there are unusual times to make unusual profits, and this is what they're preparing for. They're foreseeing a major downturn in the market, and they're going to buy it up, and that's why they're sitting on cash. And so when you see what's coming ahead of time, you can prepare for it and then put yourself in position to win big time. So, this is why we've been saying, have multiple streams of income, acquire real assets, during times of financial crisis, during times of inflation. That's when people turn to gold and silver. Okay. If you listen to Robert Kiyosaki and a lot of people over the years, they've been telling you that you want to hold gold and silver, especially physical silver. Silver is the most undervalued physical asset on the planet. It's 50, it's what is it, $25 an ounce, 50% off of its all-time high. These are the times for those who've been saving in assets like physical gold and silver that, you have some financial security. But if people aren't making plans for this downturn, it's possibly a lot of people going to get wiped out like in 2008.
So last part from this article, Buffett hasn't explicitly predicted a stock market crash, but again, don't listen to what he says, listen to what he does. But he sold 33 billion of stocks on a net basis and grown Berkshire's cash pile by 38 billion over the last 3 quarters. The bargain hunter now has plenty of dry powder to deploy on cut price stocks and acquisitions if the market does retreat. So, the big takeaway from this article, guys, is get as much cash flow as possible and start stacking it up, ready to buy the dip when there's huge sales, whether it's in real estate. I don't really like stocks, but if you're into that, a lot of people think the stock market will go down. And again, if that happens, the price of gold and silver might go down. Again, I don't care what the dollar price of gold and silver. I'm buying it all the time.
Yeah.
But you got to be ready, because when the pandemic happened, the silver price dropped, right?
Yeah. Not only that, when it comes to the metals, either they'll tank the price, okay, because it's a paper market, right? So it's rigged and manipulated. It's not the physical market. So you'll see premiums either stay where they are or they'll go up. So it doesn't even matter if they knock the price down. You're still going to pay the high premiums for it.
And usually, when the price goes down, the premium goes up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What I mean? So, these are just some of those things that I had another point there, but yeah, these are some of those things that you want to consider in these downturns in these markets.
And just so you guys know, because we may have new listeners tonight, when I say the price, I mean the fake paper manipulated price on the COMEX. So silver right now is probably around $23 an ounce, a fake paper silver, right? It might go down to 18 if something bad happens. But the price to get physical silver, which is about 33, 30-ish right now, will go up.
Right.
So does that make sense?
Yeah.
That you see the price go down of the fake paper price, but the price to get the real stuff goes up.
Yeah. And one other thing to consider.
It's called a clue.
Yeah. It's not only is it a clue, but you hope that you can buy it during those times. If we do have another, crisis globally, or if we do see a major shock to the market, you might not even be able to buy physical silver, especially on the major dealer sites. It happened during the silver squeeze. It happened, in 2020 with the scamdemic. People couldn't buy silver. Okay, so that's why we're saying hold physical silver, get it now. The other thing is, for those who might not be in position to, capitalize on this opportunity, just make sure that you're able to survive it. Okay, keep your home. Make sure you're able to, prepare. Reduce your expenses. Make sure you have a way to maintain your standard of living and not have an adverse reaction to your lifestyle because of what's to come.
No, that's a good point, Ricardo. So the next issue we have to deal with is there's this company in China called Evergrande, which is into real estate. If you guys don't know, China just builds stuff. Okay. They literally have empty cities of just houses and apartments they've built. Nobody lives in them, but China's very good at saving money and they just put it into real estate. Okay. So China Evergrande has 28.1 billion of outstanding bonds as it files for Chapter 15 bankruptcy. And we knew this was coming. It's been in the news. I know, we're kind of finance nerds who pay attention to this stuff. We knew this was coming 2 years ago. We've talked about it many times. Troubled developers' most active bonds have fallen below 5 cents on the dollar, 95% down. So China Evergrande Group, which filed for Chapter 15 bankruptcy protection in New York late Thursday, has $21.8 billion of outstanding bonds, the bulk of which mature in 2025. That means it's bad in 2025 for them. A Chapter 15 bankruptcy is a way for foreign companies with U.S. assets to get access to domestic courts and protect them from U.S. creditors while they restructure overseas. The following chart shows how the near term. So basically, when 2025 hits, they're going to owe lots of people lots of money and they don't have it, which is why they're filing for bankruptcy. Evergrande, which is China's second biggest developer, defaulted in 2021 and became a symbol of China's highly leveraged property sector. Investors are now also worried about another developer, Country Garden, which missed 22.5 million in interest payments on dollar bonds earlier this August. So, Ricardo, imagine a normal person not paying a $22 million interest payment. It's like one of those things of like, if you owe the bank $100, it doesn't matter. If you owe the bank $22 million, the bank's in trouble. What are they going to do to get this 22 million? The following chart showed there was slightly better net buying of the most active Evergrande bonds going into the Chapter 15 announcement. So you can see here, the bonds going from almost $12 down to, 5% of what was going to happen. This is going from, this is just a year. This is just in 2023, how much they've gone down. So M.I.M.S, I know this is hard for people to grasp, but, any way you can make it make sense of why this is probably not a good thing for the economic outlook here in the future.
Well, yeah, you have to understand that we're in a global economy. We're a globally connected economy. What happens in the East affects the West. What happens in the West affects the East. So what you're seeing here is in China, the second biggest real estate market is in trouble. Okay. So not only do we have a problem over here in the US, but there also is a problem in China. And then when you understand that the leverage that is in this system, the derivatives, and the leverage that's in this system, when you start to have these cracks, these cracks are literally earthquakes that are happening in the financial system. And the earthquake happens, but not just the earthquake happens, then a tsunami comes after the earthquake. And so the earthquake just happened. It shook the market. Now you're waiting for the tsunami. Okay. And now you see in crypto, okay, you see there's a downturn in the crypto market, and a lot of people have associated Tether and its backing, right? Because what's backing Tether? And a lot of people tied it to Evergrande, even though Tether said that they don't have any direct, bonds, from Evergrande, but the Chinese companies, right, and institutions and banks, Tether's backed their bonds by them. So when you have a contagion, like a domino effect, where you have, the second largest real estate company in China going under, well, that affects other companies in China. And if anybody has, their bonds or their assets, well, that affects their, the quality of their assets and their ability. So you can kind of see how there's a domino effect where nobody got no money to pay anybody. And then you start to see markets collapse. And that's why you see Warren Buffett and others sitting on a lot of cash, ready to buy this stuff up on pennies on a dollar.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's why we call them M.I.M.S, breaking it down like that. And, you know, I watch YouTube videos a lot on finances. Nobody does what M.I.M.S does like that. So I hope you paid attention, and you better rewind this and watch it later because you need to grasp that. So the other thing that's happening this week, Ricardo, again, this is just unprecedented times, is the good old Federal Reserve has a meeting, all right, in Jackson Hole, which is beautiful. I got to go there. These are the Grand Tetons. It's an amazing, you know, secluded, beautiful environment. So basically all these rich bankers fly in for this meeting, and they're going to discuss the next year. What are they going to do? All right. And they've met here since 1978. World renowned economists will come here. Kind of the only important thing I wanted to mention here was Powell's speech will be on Friday at 10 o'clock. He will give the Fed's thoughts, and minutes from the Fed's July meeting revealed that most Fed officials see upside risk to inflation, which could require further tightening of monetary policy, which means higher interest rates, which is not good for you most likely, unless maybe you're buying Bitcoin, gold, and silver. Will there be another Fed rate hike? Will they increase interest rates? Supposedly, Powell said, I would say it's possible we could raise rates at the September meeting if the data warranted, and possible we would choose to hold steady at that meeting, he said in July. According to the FedWatch tool, there's a 13.5 chance of a rate hike in September. There are only 3 Fed policy meetings left in 2023. Financial markets also want to hear if there will be a rate hike in 2024. So that's basically that. But here's what people are doing. Again, don't listen to what people say. Watch what they do. So this chart is year-to-date cash inflows in global money market funds. So this is where somebody pulls their money out of a bank and puts it in what's called a money market that's averaging, I believe, around 5% a year now. So this is what Warren Buffett's doing. If you remember, when we read this, it says he had, I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but that he was doing it in short-term bonds. Maybe it was in another one. Okay, not bonds. I'm sorry, money markets. Okay, so they can get like 5% interest, but it's short-term. It's 3 months, meaning he can move his money to buy stuff very quickly. So you can see here, basically, the higher people are putting money into money markets means they are ready to have cash to buy when the market goes down, which is why it was a lot in 2020, because the powers that be and the people in the know did that to buy the dip when the pandemic started, which was huge. Bitcoin, Ricardo, was $6,000 in 2020. 25 grand today has hit 30 grand, right? And so that's why people had money parked. You could say this is money parked, ready to buy when things go down. It's at 925 billion, higher than when the pandemic started. So I would imagine the dip's going to be harder than even COVID. M.I.M.S, anything you want to add here with the money we see, the cash we see here, ready to buy up assets and real estate when something happens?
Well, this is why you want to be liquid, and this comes down to liquidity. You don't want to have your money locked up for a long period of time in something that takes away your ability to take advantage of opportunities in the market. And right now, we're seeing the middle class going to get squeezed. We're getting the squeeze right now. The inflation is out of control. The prices for groceries, I mean, just to maintain, and even we're talking about gas prices going up now. And then you have all these rumors of war. We have all this bad economic data, and you see all these moves that are being made. This is kind of why I wear that 2024 hat. A lot of people ask me, why you wear 2024? Is it about the election? What is it about? And it really comes down to 2024 is going to be to me an apocalyptic time. And if you really look at what apocalypse means, it just means a great awakening. I think that the dynamics and circumstances that are going to be facing the world are going to be so eye-opening that it will change the way that people think and continue to move forward in their lives. Whether you're talking about the division in this country with between the left and the right, and who's going to be the president for next year. Whether you talk about the global economy, and what's going on with BRICS and what's going on with the treasury bonds and the value of the dollar. There's so many different war fronts and challenges that the world faces, and it's to me it's like a volcano. It's getting ready to blow. So we're getting hit with earthquakes. We're going to get hit with economic tsunamis. We're having society boiling to a point where it's ready to burst because of the divisions that they have created and the divide and conquer tactics they continue to facilitate. So these are things that we're seeing, and although nobody has a crystal ball, the same advice that we've been given is the same advice that's true today. You want to have multiple streams of income. You want to make sure that you have an emergency fund. Okay. You want to make sure that you're saving and holding and preserving the value of your money in physical silver and gold. And you, of course, want to be able to capitalize in these markets dealing with blockchain and crypto, because that's where it's going, folks. Everything's going digital. Okay. You want to have a nice bag in the XLM. Okay. Stellar Lumens, the XRPs, the ISO tokens. Okay. You have to have, because we're going to see volatility. There's going to be a volatile time in these markets. So lock in your positions, get what you can now. It might go lower, it might go higher, but have a forward-thinking mentality. Okay, don't necessarily look at right now, but prepare for the future and hold assets for the long term if you can.
Oh, again, that was absolute fire, bro. Guys, this is why you want to run with the runners. Yeah, taking down the middle class. Again, Brandy, thank you for watching. Kevin living in New York, $16 for 3 bagels.
Crazy.
And a small coffee, bro.
That's crazy.
Like,
that's crazy.
In my 20s, I remember getting like a steak dinner with a couple sides for $9.99 from TGI Fridays. Now we're paying $16 for 3 bagels and a coffee. Unbelievable.
Yeah. It's going to get worse. They talk about the grain crisis. They're talking about food supply shortages being shipped, all over the world. And then you have these, what seems random explosion of factories in the U.S. and farms and, animals and things of this nature. So there's definitely some stuff going on here. And you just have to stay vigilant. You got to stay woke, and you just prepare the best that you can.
Awake, not woke.
Awake, yeah.
Yeah.
They
don't go woke, guys. Don't go woke on us.
Yeah, they're messing with the words, man. They messing with the matrix, man. The matrix, man. The code is
different. It's all about that. All right. So the last thing we need to talk tonight, which is probably the most important that you guys need to understand of what's going to happen, is called BRICS. 5 things to watch as South Africa hosts the BRICS Summit. Expansion, currency cooperation, and food security, which M.I.M.S just hit on. All right. South Africa hosts a summit on the BRICS group of nations and other nations this week. All right. So we're talking about Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Okay. Now we're going to watch a video to break all this down, because actually, guys, this is the most important part of this. Okay. And then we're going to talk about something called de-dollarization. Say that again with me. De-dollarization. If you don't know what this is and you don't understand it and how to move to profit from it, you're going to lose a lot of your wealth and value. So you want to pay attention to what de-dollarization is. And before we watch this video, just so you grasp and you pay attention, put down whatever you're doing, stop scrolling, okay? Stop watching whatever you're doing, pay attention. This is the usage of the dollar as a reserve currency, meaning how much is the dollar being used? Okay. This is only in 20 years. So think of this, from 9/11 until now, we've seen the usage of the dollar. This is in the world, in the globe, go from above 72% down to almost 58% in the last few years here. So if you guys have ever traveled or, understand the trade, the dollar used to be as good as gold. People would accept it and use it. I still remember, Ricardo, when we were in Barcelona and we tried to give our our photographer $10, and she looked at it like we gave her a piece of shit.
Yeah.
She's like, what am I going to do with this?
Right.
So the point here, guys, is this is a huge role in bringing the value of the dollar, the usage of it down. And obviously, the less something is used, the value of it goes down. So
And this is why they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Everything that I just said, I feel like is summed up in this image. Okay. And if you just understand, like Mike talked about, the exchange rates for currency. And then, along with another image that I like to use that shows the G7 nations in a decline while BRICS has surpassed them in GDP. And that's a great quote. Time to buy some land and grow your own food. And for those who are interested, if you need some non-GMO organic heirloom seeds, message me. Okay, I have a Black-owned business out in California. It has a variety pack for herbs, vegetables. Okay, you name it, and get your seeds. I got my seeds from her. Phenomenal package that she had took care of me, and she told me to let the community know. So anybody who needs some organic, non-GMO heirloom seeds, message me. The variety pack is about $128, but you're going to get some herbs, some additional seeds, and some vegetables. It was worth it. But yeah, this is what we're looking at. The dollar is being used less around the world, and when I look at this image, like I said, think forward, right? So if this was in the last 20 years, okay, well, what is the next 20 years going to look like?
Ooh,
All right.
good
If you
point.
plan on being around, if you believe your loved ones are going to be around, okay, what is it going to look like in the next 20 years for you? What is it going to look like in the next 20 years for them? The value of your dollar, the use of the dollar globally. Okay. That's how you want to think about this. And what you're looking at this chart, I want you to understand something, that it's probably going to be accelerated because they didn't have the BRICS at the level that they are now. We didn't have the crisis was there, but the world is just different. We're in uncharted territory right now.
Yep.
There's this global consensus that's kind of forming. A line is being drawn in the sand, and people are moving faster towards whichever side they align on. So yeah, this image here with this data is pretty powerful, Mike.
Yeah, it shocked me today. I was doing research and I found this and I was like, wow, that's scary. And it's gonna pick up here even quicker. Anyways, this video is the best I could find to break down what you need to know about BRICS and why it matters. So it's only 8 minutes long. We'll give a little commentary here, but it's pretty good.
Hi everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here today. We're seeing an interesting turn of events. After the Prime Minister of India, Modi, visited the United States a couple of weeks ago, he agreed to pursue building a US Navy base in India. And this move is a move that has the potential to undermine India's position in the BRICS bloc.
So what you guys have to understand is the BRICS nations are trying to form an economic agreement, but they don't all agree on everything. So Russia and China are much more aligned. Brazil and India, I would say, are more towards the West or freedom. And South Africa is kind of like playing the middleman, right? So again, everything comes down to negotiation and, it gets into all these diplomatic types of things. But the point is, can they align economically without necessarily agreeing on a bunch of stuff? And the whole Ukraine war throws another spin on it. And so this is kind of what she's talking about.
This is because the bloc, as any team, would have to move forward in a cohesive manner, and having one of its founding member countries take a step in a somewhat of a different direction would mean risking the future of the entire partnership. Of course, there is also an elephant in the room, the China and India relations that have not really been exactly friendly as the result of their border dispute, but their trade ties and geopolitical aspirations, as well as pure size of China's economy, those things haven't really allowed a full-scale conflict to unfold. Having said that, in light of the recent events and with the BRICS bloc summit being just several short weeks away, it may be safe to assume that India would need to decide what course it wants to pursue. I would imagine that it will be part of the discussion in August. Of course, India will still benefit from multiple bilateral agreements that it has already entered into, but it is really challenging to see the BRICS bloc just kind of going along with some of the country's latest decisions, primarily, of course, the Navy base. With that in mind, the BRICS announced that they will launch a gold-backed currency. It is an idea that has been floating around for a very long time. Countries of the global south, as well as those who want to see multipolarity in this world, are cheering on the idea. But how realistic is it? Is it truly feasible? Countries of the global south see the US dollar as a threat to their future development, a threat to the safety of their economies, including the bank reserves. This is why they are seeking alternative ways for cross-border trade. They don't want to be cut off from the international settlement system like SWIFT, or have to deal with sanctions if their political agenda doesn't align with that of the West.
So again, I don't really care how you vote or what you think about political parties or the Ukraine war, but the point is, when we did the sanctions we did on Russia, other countries were like, well, we don't want to be controlled like this. So that's what she's saying here is the other countries are saying, we saw what you did to Russia, America, good or bad, I'm not here to debate that. And they said, we want to make sure you can't do that to us. So M.I.M.S, do you want to mention anything about this gold-backed currency that the BRICS countries are planning on launching?
Yeah, I mean, we know that this is coming. It's literally an inevitability. It's just a matter of time. Whether BRICS does it or something, the dollar's done. Its days are numbered. When we put up the U.S. debt clock and you see over $30 trillion in debt, you look at the chart here saying the world is using less of the dollar. You know what I'm saying? When I pull up the unfunded liabilities here in the United States, almost at $200 trillion. We're just in a shift, and what's going to happen is it's going towards silver and gold, and it's going towards blockchain technology. So however we transfer value, this is why we say, the XRP, XLMs, it's silver and gold. You're preparing for the future. Now, does that mean, cash is just going to be gone tomorrow? No, cash is going to be around. But the thing about the cash that you want to consider is what is it going to buy you? What is the purchasing power of those dollars, right? And this is why once again we talk about preserving your wealth and assets, because the assets increase in value as the dollar declines in value. And so this is it just comes down to all you're seeing right now is power moves being made. These are major power chess moves that are being made on a global scale. There's a lot of uncertainty in which country will move in which way. Dynamics and things always change, but we talk about it all the time. The most important economy is your economy. Yep. We can't control what India does and what BRICS does. We can keep updated on it, and because it does affect our outside world. But what's most important is how you're able to maintain your standard of living, maintain the roof over your head, the clothes on your back, and take care of yourself and your loved ones. And so that's why we need to be abreast to this, of what's going on, while also hedging and accumulating assets and cash flow.
Nailed it.
Again, guys, M.I.M.S is dropping the truth tonight. Rewind that last 1 minute. Make sure you listen to it again to understand how important this is right now.
So the big question is, does the BRICS bloc have the capability to execute internal trade in domestic currencies, and how do they make their currency or currencies of choice valuable? It is no secret that currencies on an individual basis of these countries are much weaker. There is less demand for them. Even though with respect to the yuan, it should be mentioned that close to 70 central banks at this time do hold yuan in their reserves. This is a much greater number than just a couple of years ago. Whether the yuan will become a common denominator for all BRICS nations remains unclear at this time, but there's obviously no denying the fact that a common currency will help these nations increase trade and make goods and services less expensive for their consumers. This is because they won't have to pay foreign currency exchange costs, and in addition to that, since there won't be foreign exchange expenses, goods and services will be cheaper for their consumers, which does make a world of a difference for these developing nations. The BRICS bloc nations have the capability to trade in a currency other than the US dollar. They have already proved it. We have seen multiple bilateral agreements entered into by Brazil, by Russia, India, South Africa, and China with external parties. Of course, the biggest hit to the value of the US dollar comes from the partnership with the Saudis and the UAE, because China and India are the first and the second, respectively, largest global importers of oil. Both China and India have more than 1.4 billion people, and combined, they make up more than a third of the world's population. There are 8 billion people in the world. Just think what long-term implications this has. The more development India sees in the future, the higher the demand will become. In addition to that, Russia, a founding member state of the bloc, is the third oil producer. Since more than 17% of its reserves are in renminbi, Russia does have a much greater preference for paying China in renminbi. The second biggest oil producer is the Saudi Arabia. Recently, the Saudis agreed to trade oil with China using the yuan, and as we have discussed before here on my channel multiple times, the Saudi Arabia.
All right, M.I.M.S, I know that was a lot for the average ordinary person to take in, and I'm just going to let you kind of break it down. I'm trying to get that.
Second biggest oil producer is the Saudi Arabia. Recently, the Saudis agreed to trade oil.
So we're talking about, again, let me give a little history here, and then M.I.M.S can take it away. So we had what's called the petrodollar. Basically, the only way to buy oil since like 1972 was the US dollar. To get oil, you had to have dollars. So you had to take your yuan or your British pound, buy dollars, and then buy the oil. This is all changed. I mean, M.I.M.S, make it make sense. I can't even do it justice like I know you can.
No, you broke it down. I mean, really, it just comes down to there was an artificial demand for the dollar when there was no value for the dollar because they took us off the gold standard. So the dollar was no longer backed by gold. So the world no longer wanted dollars, and that was going to send a lot of dollars back home, create massive inflation, and loss in value in the dollar. And so they set it up to where the world now has to pay for oil in dollars. And now we're seeing another major shift in the matrix, another major shift in the world and in the way trade and commerce is done globally. The petrodollar is losing that status. And you saw it with that other image that Mike put up earlier, that the dollar is being used less. And so now when you have the emerging markets, the growing economies, because understand something, the BRICS countries are growing. The Europe, G7, these countries are in a decline. Okay, they're in a decline. While BRICS is growing. So Saudi Arabia is going to cater to the new merging, it's a change of the old, the old guard is going out. It's a change of the guard. It's a new sheriff in town type of scenario here. So now you're seeing Saudi Arabia saying, hey, well, we're actually going to have to take something other than dollars. The policy of the 70s is not working in the 2020s and, 30s and whatever have you. So Once again, it's just more confirmation. It's just more validation that the shift is happening, that the shift is real, and that the tide is changing right before our eyes.
So again, what you guys are going to see is this continue to decline as Russia, Saudi Arabia, India, China stop using the dollar to buy oil. I'm not here to say if that's right or wrong. We're just here to deliver the data and try to help you guys understand how to profit and survive from what's going on.
Oil with China using the yuan. And as we have discussed before here on my channel multiple times, the Saudi Arabia has already expressed interest in joining the BRICS bloc. Now, are there any other reasons why the countries of the so-called global south would want to de-dollarize? Here's something that nobody's talking about. The BRICS nations will benefit from a weak dollar because it will make it easier for them, for these nations, to repay their debts owed to international organizations, such as the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund. So there's also that aspect of this new changing world order. Do they have to repay their debts? Absolutely. But just like a consumer, just like you and I, when the currency is weak, your debt becomes less expensive, and repaying it at that point in time is what you want to do.
So this is why it makes sense to take a 30-year mortgage at a 3-4% and not pay it off early. Okay. So all these emerging nations owe loans to the IMF and the World Bank and all that. Well, if they owe them in dollars, so let's say they owe $1 million, right? Well, if $1 million becomes less valuable and it's easier to get, it's easier to pay off their debts. So all she's trying to say is all of these developing nations are incentivized to make the dollar go down because then the loans that they have are easier to pay back. Okay. So again, every metric, every data point is pointing to de-dollarization. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying it is.
Okay, so the bilateral agreements will likely exist in addition to the BRICS bloc introducing a gold-backed currency. I want to dedicate an entire video to the BRICS gold-backed currency. I would like to spend more time on it, so please make sure that you turn on your notifications if that is something that you're interested in. I do plan on uploading that video soon. One more important aspect that I do want to discuss here is this incredible wealth transfer that is bound to take place as the result of the global hegemon effectively losing its power. When the BRICS create, and we know that they are about to announce it during the summit in Johannesburg, so when they create a gold-backed currency, any fiat currency, especially a currency that is backed by the full faith of governments that are tangled in waging wars, those fiat currencies will be eventually less and less valuable as the majority of the global population realizes that they do have alternative routes. They don't have to play along. Thank you for watching the video.
Okay, so the last point she brought up there, Ricardo, is huge. So just so you guys understand, right now, we live in a world where everyone has a fiat currency, meaning they just print it. They just create it out of nothing. All right. And we can keep printing dollars because everyone else is doing it too. It's like we're all living in a fugazi. It's all fake. All right. But the second someone has something real, backed by real assets, the gig is up. It's game over. So this is why the BRICS going to this asset-backed currency could mean a lot of different things. I'll let M.I.M.S break down when it comes to de-dollarization. So M.I.M.S, as we close out tonight, that last point she made, why do people need to understand what de-dollarization is and take advantage of the next 6 months to set themselves up?
Yeah, everything that we played in this whole video literally should be setting you up for the next 6 months, because what we talked about was the trends, and then we backed it up and substantiated, with articles and videos from people who are saying the same thing. And the thing is that most people don't get this information. If you're watching mainstream media, they're not going to put it to you, in this way. They're not going to articulate it to you in this way. They're not going to give you any solutions, or give you any kind of ways to think about or go about how to prepare for this shift. But the world is shifting away from the dollar. De-dollarization is a real thing. And, they say, do as they do, not do as they say. And what I mean? So when we say that, it's like, well, what is the world doing? The world is getting gold. They're getting silver. They're divesting away from the dollar. And we have these major global shifts that are taking place. And so right now, when you're watching this live stream, you're really watching us just documenting the collapse. Like I tell people all the time, we're living in the most significant time period in history. There's never been a more important time in history than the time we're in right now. I don't care what you've read in history books. I don't care what about the past. There's never been a time where the global economy has been so interconnected. The global economy, one thing happens on one side of the world, it affects the other side of the world. And now we're seeing technology, AI, robotics, and we're seeing the world more connected than ever and more aware and awake than ever because of social media. We just have a lot of dynamics that are taking place that are really putting us in this precarious situation that if you're not doing the right things right now, if you're not staying awake, right, if you're not getting assets, creating cash flow, you will get wiped out, with this. That's what Mike's want to say. As de-dollarization happens, as these things take place, you're either gonna be, set, or you're gonna be set up. So we hope you put yourself in position to be set and not set up.
Absolute fire, bro. So again, guys, I just want to stress, we are not scaring you. We are preparing you. This is an opportunity. Get excited when things go down and there's blood in the streets. Get prepared. Get educated. This is what we have been, teaching and preaching for 3+ years. We have some new amazing information we're going to be bringing you guys very, very soon. Some new platforms to even give you the education, ways for you guys to profit more, to, get more connected. Because I'm telling you guys, the next 6 months are going to be life changing. Do what you got to do to make sure you're set up for success. And again, you don't take massive action, right? You change your daily discipline. You just shift where you're storing your value. If you are still in a bank, in cash only, in stocks, you got to get educated and understand how to get into alternative assets. That's what we're trying to share with you guys right now. So don't get scared, get excited. The greatest opportunity since the Great Depression is happening in the next 6 months. So get plugged in, run with the runners. We want to make sure that you guys survive this and thrive during this time. My man, we good?
Lace up. Let's get wealthy.
Get wealthy, baby.